Night on Nowhere to Run. An armed man takes officers on one of the most dangerous pursuits in Texas history. Then, a meth head with a shotgun tries to outrun police, while his family begs him to stop. And later, a suspect tries to ditch the cops by driving straight into a bevy of bovines. This isn't make-believe. It's real life. No recreations, no second chances. Watch as police in hot pursuit track dangerous criminals as they try to get away. See the action like never before, from the eyes in the sky to the ground below. Hear the stories, not just from the cops, but from the suspects themselves. What they were thinking, where they were going, how they thought they could get away when there was nowhere to run. Pasadena, Texas. Kenneth Poole just robbed a woman at gunpoint.
I went to a cleaner's and ripped off a lady's purse to get a credit card so I can get gas.
The crime is suspiciously similar to a string of recent robberies. Officer John Oakley scours the streets for the pistol-packing perp.
The suspect had robbed an elderly female of her purse. I recognize this call. We had several incidents of similar cases in the past. Therefore, I attempted to locate the suspect vehicle that was broadcast over the radio.
He spots the gunman's truck hiding in a Walmart parking lot. The officer hits his lights, sending a wave of panic up Poole's spine.
When I saw them, I just wanted to get away. I didn't want to go to jail, and that's why I ran, because I didn't want to go to jail. I figured I can get away somehow or another.
Poole peels out, initiating one of the craziest chases in Texas history. Officer Oakley quickly finds out just how far Poole is willing to go.
I observed the driver stick a silver-colored handgun out the driver's side window, aim at my direction, and fire a couple of rounds at my unit. The suspect reached the point of no return when he decided he would shoot at the police.
Poole maintains that he wasn't trying to hit the officer.
I fired it one time up in the air, out the window, up in the air, just to scare him. That's when, at the first of the chase.
But the evidence proves otherwise.
He struck my unit one time in the upper right-hand corner of the windshield.
The bullet barely misses its intended target. But next time, a bystander may not be so lucky.
After the suspect shot at police, it was a question of whether he would shoot at innocent civilians as well.
In a desperate attempt to ditch his pursuers, Poole drives toward oncoming traffic and swerves onto the pavement.
And that's where I lost him, going toward traffic, hoping I wouldn't get hit or I wouldn't hit nobody else.
A squad car closes in, when suddenly one officer is out for the count. Poole almost gets away, but the cops have him from above.
The only thing that kept him from totally getting lost from the police was the helicopter above that was monitoring him.
Officers try to box Poole in at the intersection, but the suspect slips out of their grasp. Hoping for an edge, the outlaw takes the chase off-road.
He obviously knew that his vehicle was more capable of going in off-terrain places than our patrol units.
When police try to cut him off, Poole makes an end run through a car park. He weaves through squad cars like they're traffic cones and clips a cruiser.
I was in the back of a parking lot somewhere that I sideswiped a police car.
Then, Poole takes the scenic route and narrowly avoids the approaching cop cavalry. The 4x4 leaves officers in the dust. But then the suspect almost takes himself out of the running.
I noticed that the safety belt did not help flying through the air. It only helps when you hit straight on and not while you're up in the air, because I hit my head on the top of the truck.
The fleeing felon blasts back onto the streets and blows through a red light, barely missing an unsuspecting motorist.
I saw the suspect vehicle running red lights, extremely high rates of speed with no regard for human life at all. But after, I saw him shoot at me, I wasn't surprised that he was trying to get away that hard.
The suspect threads the needle and tags a black pickup. But the whacked-out fugitive doesn't even remember it.
I was having blackouts too, and I do not remember hitting a black truck.
Then, Poole gives new meaning to driving on the fairway.
I was shocked that he was brazen enough to do that. It obviously showed his intent that he was not going to give up anytime soon.
The crook hops onto the freeway, followed by a police posse.
I was back on the freeway again, and there was like 50 police cars behind me when I looked in my rearview mirror, and I was really surprised.
Cops see their chance to hamstring Poole's pickup.
There was some guys at a toll road where you pay, and they were putting out something, but I didn't know it was spikes. And then I ran across it, and then that's when they blew out my tires.
The spikes shred the suspect's front tires. Poole is running out of options.
When the tires came off my rims, I knew that I was going to have to do something quick because I didn't have no traction and no control over it. I felt like I didn't have nowhere to run.
The crippled truck plows into a pickup. Cops think the chase is finally finished.
At that point, I felt like the pursuit was going to be over. Other units got out of their cars, ordered the suspect out at gunpoint.
But Poole refuses to give up.
The truck still moved, and I can, had control over it a little bit, so I just decided to keep on going.
With another roadblock up ahead, the desperado takes a turn for the worse.
I went into the grassy area, thought maybe there was another way out. I didn't even see the ditch with water, and I just crashed right into it.
Cops swarm the vehicle, but Poole has one final ace up his sleeve.
The water started filling up in the cab, and it was getting above my knees. All I could think of was, I want to write my mother a note and tell her I'm going to shoot myself.
Crisis negotiator Kenneth Urban arrives on the scene.
The individual was locked inside of his truck and would not communicate with us. However, we could see clearly that he was contemplating suicide because of the fact that he had his pistol up to his head.
But quick thinking by one of the officers saves the suspect's life.
Another officer was able to discover that he had written a note inside the truck. The officer used a pair of binoculars, was able to read the note and determined that it was to his mother. And he was basically apologizing to her for what he had done. We use that in our communication purposes to tell him that there is someone out there that cares for him, and that someone that he cares for, and this is someone that you want to live for.
After a marathon 3-hour chase, police arrest the outlaw with no loss of human life.
Running through my mind, I could see my grandkids and talking to me and everything just running through my mind, and really didn't want to leave them, and I didn't really want to commit suicide.
Kenneth Ray Poole is convicted of aggravated robbery and attempted murder. The 58-year-old felon currently serves a 30-year sentence.
I do believe justice was served on the suspect. Due to the fact of his age, I don't believe he'll ever get out of prison.
A medicated maniac led police on a death-defying ride.
I think that in his mind, he was going to do anything he could to get away.
But when the off-road outlaw ran into trouble, police negotiators kept this chase from reaching a dead end.
I remember to the day I die, because it's always in your mind, why did I do it? You can't get away from the cops, you can't get away from radio or a helicopter. So you might as well just pull on over before you hurt somebody or kill yourself.
Coming up, he's high as a kite, a danger to everyone, including himself. But will the love of his family be enough to make him give up? And later,
I didn't know where I was going. I was just trying to run.
Clifford Fluellen tells us about his moving experience with these Texas cops. When Nowhere to Run returns. Pomona, California. 2 hours ago, Sergeant Mike Chisek saw a pickup blow through a stop sign. Little did he know the infraction would turn into the wildest pursuit of his career.
He rolled through the stop sign, never even stopped, and when he saw us, he accelerated. The rear tires broke loose, and you could hear the tires screeching away.
The officers give chase as the suspect rockets away, ripping through red lights.
He was doing 100, 105 miles an hour at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on these city surface streets that are typically posted at 40 and 45 miles an hour. You're talking a 4,000, 5,000 pound vehicle. It's a weapon at that point, at those speeds. If he would have ran that light at 100 miles an hour like he did, and some unfortunate driver happened to be in that intersection, it would have been a fatality at that point.
But the pickup isn't the only thing that's speeding. The driver, Joseph Thompson, is hopped up on crystal meth. The speed demon pulls out all of the stops to lose his pursuers.
He's all over the road, erratic behavior, driving on the wrong side of the double lines, driving head-on into oncoming traffic.
At one point, the high-speed hoodlum ran 2 cars off the road.
He acted like his truck was a motorcycle that split traffic and actually hit both cars, and both cars spun out and continued on. So my partner and I are still in pursuit, actively pursuing him.
Sergeant Chisek now knows the suspect will do whatever it takes to elude police.
That would be the point of no return, the fact that he hit 2 vehicles and continues on. He's obviously making the motions that he wants to get away at all costs.
Thompson's actions prove he has no regard for human life, including his own. Upon joining the chase, Officer Jesse Cavazos saw a disturbing sight.
I could see through the rear window of the truck when he raised the shotgun up with his right hand, then pointed it to his head and came to a stop. That's when I then knew we had somebody who was armed with the shotgun.
The already dangerous chase takes a deadly turn.
At this time, we knew he was armed, and that's the part that where now I think everybody was a little bit concerned. Was he going to take his own life? Was he going to, might want to do suicide by cop, or was he going to shoot somebody else? At that point where he stopped his vehicle was probably the most dangerous part of the pursuit.
Running low on fuel, Thompson stops at a petrol station to fill his tank. Officers surround the suspect. Running out of options, Thompson exits his truck with his gun to his head. He keeps cops at bay in a suicidal standoff while trying to steal gas from unlucky customers.
He'd exited the freeway and was pulled into a gas station. That's where he exhibited the shotgun, and from I understand, he pulled the gas pump out and was trying to put gasoline all over the floor of the gas station.
Officers back off from Thompson to prevent him from panicking and injuring innocent civilians. With nowhere to run, the desperate addict calls his sister on a cell phone. She pleads with him to surrender to the authorities.
At that time, he made contact with some member of his family who did convince him to go back to basically to stop, which he didn't, but I guess he might have felt more comfortable, or he just wanted to go back home. If it was all going to end, he just maybe wanted to go back home.
Thompson drives to his sister's house where she meets him out in the street. Police block off the road and prepare for the worst.
Once his sister made contact, she actually ran up to him. We had no choice but then to apprehend him. We had our guns drawn at the suspect, but now we had an innocent person going to the suspect. It made things a little bit more difficult. Now we had to consider the safety of that person.
Fearing for Thompson's life, the sister frantically tries to yank him out of the truck. Finally, the suspect relents. Another family member holds Thompson down while the cops swarm in and slap on the cuffs.
After he was placed under arrest, and we provided first aid to some injuries that he sustained by the canine dog, and I placed him in my patrol vehicle, he immediately stated that he was sorry. He seemed very remorseful for what he did. He just said he was hurting. He was going through some tough times.
Officers breathe a sigh of relief that the perilous pursuit ended with no loss of life.
Everything that in this whole package, to say that it could get any more dangerous. The fact that he was under the influence of methamphetamine, the fact that he had weapons, that he had pulled a shotgun out, that they had to use a canine dog to subdue him or to disarm the weapon from him. And we count our lucky stars that nothing more serious happened.
Thompson is sentenced to 4 years for felony evading and assault with a deadly weapon. In Sergeant Chisek's opinion, he got off easy.
If he has no regard for officers and for what they stand for, integrity and honesty and justice, and he wants to run that down. That's kind of a personal affront to law enforcement everywhere that I think that he needs to, in my mind, he should have done a lot more time.
A drug-addled driver led police on a harrowing 2-hour chase. But thanks to a sister's unconditional love, the pursuit did not end in tragedy.
This is by far the pursuit of a career. This could have been a scene out of a movie, out of a car chase.
Next, a scared felon does whatever it takes to avoid going back to jail.
Oh, I was nervous, I'm telling you. I didn't know if they was gonna shoot.
Alvin, Texas. What begins as a typical day for Officer Jay Jackson and his partner ends in a wild ride.
We got called out to check the area for a robbery suspect. We responded to the area along with some other units while driving around. The officer in the vehicle with me spotted the suspect vehicle. We turned around on him, got behind him, and we were able to identify him.
Repeat offender Clifford Fluellen was wanted for robbing a gas station. So when he saw a couple of cops on his way home one day, he turned around and drove away. But it was too late.
I went to my sister's house for a barbecue, and I left her house and I went to this guy's house that owed me some money. I saw 2 police cars and some people driveway down the street. While I looked in my mirror, 2 police cars got behind me.
When Officer Jackson hit the lights, Fluellen hit the gas.
Yeah, I was scared. I was really scared. I'm trying to get away from these police. I don't want to come back to prison.
As Officer Jackson calls for backup, Fluellen pushes his pickup to the limit.
I was nervous in a way. I was going 100 miles an hour. And then my pickup, it just shut off. Because you get up to so fast and it just cut off. Oh, I was nervous, I'm telling you. Because I was trembling. I didn't know if they was going to shoot.
The frightened fugitive
You could
panics.
see him in the vehicle. He was agitated. He was throwing his hands up.
But no matter what he does, the crook can't ditch the cops.
I looked behind me, there was about 30 police cars behind me. So I matched the gas to my pickup. I was going from one lane to the other lane. I guess we must have ran about 15 or 20 miles.
Fluellen drives by the seat of his pants with no plan to speak of. The same can't be said of his pursuers. The officers box him in. They herd Fluellen towards a DPS roadblock at the next intersection. But Fluellen sees the barricade at the last moment and swerves into a car park.
So I looked in the front of me, that was the DPS and the county law up ahead. So they were trying to block me off. So I ran through this man, a man had a fish market where he sell fish at. So I ran through his yard.
The frantic felon rips onto a back road with the police posse riding on his heels.
Whenever he turned onto the county road and cut through the parking lot, that was probably the point of no return for him.
Fluellen has no idea where this road will take him, but the cops know there is only one way out.
I'd never been out that way. I didn't know where I was going. I was just trying to run.
The suspect blows through a stop sign while the officers are just biding their time. Fluellen approaches the dogleg left and his heart almost stops.
I was going down and there was a curve. I was gonna go around this curve, but when I got to the curve, I saw the county and the DPS officers out there with their shotgun. So I saw this field out there with this fence.
With only a split second to act, Fluellen crashes through the gate. Suddenly, the suspect runs into unexpected trouble.
There were about 50 cows in the pasture. But when I ran through the gate, they took off running. They took off running in a corner of the field.
Fluellen dodges the bovine blockade. He hopes the stampede will slow down his pursuers. But they stay right on his tail.
Cows were kind of running all over the place. They pretty much got out of the way pretty quick whenever they heard all the sirens and everything.
Fenced in by farmlands, the outlaw has nowhere to run.
Couldn't go nowhere else. Couldn't go nowhere else. Wasn't nowhere else to run.
Fluellen has one last hope of escape. He tears through the pasture toward the high grass.
Ain't no way they could come out in this field in their cars because it's muddy. So I went out there and I almost got stuck. I was throwing mud. But I looked behind me, they was right behind me.
The fugitive plows through a barbed wire fence. It's almost the last thing he ever does.
He hit a couple of barbed wire fences He actually had a fence post go through the windshield and come out the back window, probably about a foot or two from his head, and he kept going.
Unfazed by his near-death experience, the fugitive ploughs through the overgrown field, but Officer Jackson keeps him in his sights. Then, the pickup truck gets stuck in a thicket. Llewellyn ditches his ride and disappears into the weeds.
I jumped out my pickup and I laid in these weeds. The grass was about as high as your camera. The police just walking around me. About 30 laws out there with their guns out, they don't even see me.
It's a high-stakes game of hide and seek.
And started crawling in the grass. But I could see this fence in the front of it before I jumped out the pickup. So I'm trying to crawl to this fence.
Llewellyn almost slithers to freedom, but the cops catch a lucky break.
I'm about from me to you to the fence. I hear this voice again saying, he finna get in the lake, he finna get in the lake. He going under the fence.
The owner of the farm points out Llewellyn from the treetops.
I'm finna go under the fence. I got my head like this under the fence. All of a sudden, the police officer come up to me. He's just bagged right off from under there. So when they handcuff me and they walk me, this man about 70 years old waving a flag and a tree. He done built a tree house out there in the field. It's his land. He the one told him what happened.
Police reel in the fugitive.
There wasn't anywhere for him to go. There was just a bunch of cow pastures out there and a bunch of open land.
54-year-old Clifford Llewellyn is convicted of robbery and felony evading. Sentenced to 50 years for his crimes, the robber has a long time to think about his actions.
I regret the whole thing. I regret really robbing that service station. I regret running. I just regret it wasn't nobody on the highway and didn't nobody get hurt. That's the main thing.
A desperate fugitive almost gave up the farm trying to run from the law. Now he'll be behind bars until the cows come home.
You can't run from the law. No way. You can't run from them. You might as well just pull over and give yourself up. Because they're going to catch you one way or another.
Join Arnie tomorrow night at 9 here on ITV4 when he discovers his formidable fighting skills. It's the epic fantasy adventure Conan the Barbarian, about a sword-wielding warrior bent on avenging his parents' death at the hands of a brutal warlord. Here next, though, Christopher Lambert and Sir Sean Connery star in Highlander.